Hello, we are Group 42. This is our ENG6 final project. I'm Joseph Kowalski.
I'm Jameson Riley.
And I'm Juan Rosas.
So I mainly worked on creating the GUI for our project. When the app runs, we have the reset game button, change background, rules, and play button show up. If do not know how to play Farkle, you can click the rules button and how to score it pops up. Change background, we start with the default. You can switch to a mountain, city, or aquatic background, whichever one you like. And when you click play, the score sheet for player one and player two pops up. Player one will go first, they will roll. Dice pops up, you get to choose which one to keep, and you keep rolling. And if a player were to Farkle, the Farkle image pops up, and the player loses all their points for that current turn. Then player two will go, and so when a player gets to over 10,000 points and they end the turn, the player counter wins pops up. And all of these images were created through the relative path in App Designer. It runs all the images that are in our subfolder. So the images would be in the images subfolder, and the sound effects are in the sounds folder.
Okay, so my part of the project was implementing the game logic and how the game scores. So if we first do an example of a roll, you can see click this button down here, and these 6 dice pop up on the screen, and the current score is set to 100. So what the code is doing is there's a callback function roll button pushed that is right here. And first of all, it selects a random number, 6 random numbers from 1 to 6. And then to display the dice images, we use Unicode interpreted through HTML. So these are the Unicode numbers or symbols for the dice 1 to 6. And then using array indexing, we correctly select which die image to display. And then this is just some logic to tell the computer whether or not to update the picture of the dice if the checkbox is clicked or not. So in this example, you can see I click, let's say these two, I roll again, and these two dice are not changed anymore because I selected them and rolled again. Now for the scoring, first of all the sum of all the different dice are 0. And then this code checks for how many of each die are rolled. So for example, every time there's a 1, it adds 1 to the sum ones variable. And then it creates an array of those. And to start scoring, it checks for certain special cases. So this is a pair counter, a triplet counter, a quadruplet counter, and so on. And then those counters are used in this scoring here. So, for example, if this is the array that is stored, it is 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 4, 1, 5, 1, 6. That's a 1 through 6 straight. The score equals the current score plus 1500. And for another example, if there is a 5 of a kind, that means that the 5 of a kind counter equals 1, the score equals the current score plus 2000. For triplets, there's a special exception in Farkle where the triplet is 100 times whatever the number is that you roll, except for ones where the score is still 300 as you would score it normally. So how I implemented that was the score equals 100 times the triplet value. So triplet value was a separate uh, status that is kept, and if the score equals 100 because it's 100 times 1, then it has to correct the value to 300. And then for the rest of the scoring, since in Farkle only ones and fives count individually for score, this checks if there are no other combinations, and then it scores however many ones there are, and then likewise this one does it for fives. Now, if there are no special cases and there are no ones or fives that are rolled that turn, then the score is 0 and it's a Farkle. And for the rest of the code, basically, it just deals with resetting each player's turn. So every time, for example, there's a roll, let's just run it again. Every time there's a roll, no, there's a Farkle. But as you can see, every time there's a roll, these checkboxes are grayed out so that you can't cheat. Just keep rolling and rolling and rolling. And likewise, this checkbox is grayed out so you can't keep rolling. And then end turn resets the entire game board. And the same exact implementation is for player 2 that I showed for player 1. All this code is the exact same for that. And the only other thing that I implemented for in terms of the game logic would be the reset button. So if I run again, I press play, and let's say we had another game going, and also here's another scoring example. So for example, there's 3 threes, so the score is 300, and let's say I wanted to roll again, and I got a 5, so I can keep rolling. But let's say I want to push my luck, I keep going, and I got no ones, no fives, and no special cases, so I lose my score, and I have to bank it. And you can see here, in this table, I have a score of 0. And for the, okay,
So I was in charge of doing the ThinkSpeak for the code. This is where we declared it, have it set for the rest of the code here in the properties. We first used it here in the startup function as a way to establish a connection as we change the scores for each player into strings. That way it'd be easier to store them in a table set and in their respectable fields. We first officially use it in the first end turn button. Right here, this is where it takes the first score of player 1, then stores it in a data table set in the ThinkSpeak channel. And then we also use it for end turn button 2. This is for player 2's score. So basically, it just sends it to a table in the ThinkSpeak channel, stores it there for future use. In the reset game button, this is here declared as a way to reset the player's score. This is so that for the next turn it doesn't get amounted further. This just sets it to 0. And then this is where the data is actually sent. This is updated in real time. So when player 1 rolls and gets their score, it gets sent here. Same with player 2, it gets sent here. And then when it needs to get called back, it just takes the data from the here and sends it back to the game.